Hi, everybody. I am Danny Silvers. I am CEO of Lantana Games, coming to you live from Gloucester, Massachusetts. Yes, that explains the tropical look on this dreary, rainy day. This talk is called Thinking in 4K. It is a talk I wrote a year ago. So obviously, all the tech I'm going to be talking about is already out of date. But some of this is, I edited it to still be as relevant as possible. So, hopefully this all kind of goes at least a little bit according to plan. All right, part one, warm up. So a little bit about me. Like I said, my name is Danny Silvers. I'm the CEO of Lantana Games. We're an independent game studio here in Massachusetts. I am a graduate of the Savannah College of Art and Design. I graduated in 2009 with a BFA in interactive design and game development. Shortly after graduation, I founded Lantana Games. I've been an indie developer now for going on 12 years. And actually, in 2012, I was one of the founders of BostonFIG Fest. This was back at MIT in those days. And now it's online, I guess. Welcome to the modern world. Hopefully we can get back to Cambridge at some point real soon. But last year I had 2 game launches. Mondrian Plastic Reality with Lantana Games, which is an retro modernist brick breaker where you play as 5 modern artists going on time-traveling art heists to uncover their lost works. And Gunhilder with Rat Dog Games, which is a sci-fi Viking first-person shooter roguelite. So this talk is going to be all about games tech, and I'm going to, sort of define that a little bit. I'm going to be mostly talking about tech that is used by games, not the technology used to make games. So, while the Unreal 5 announcements are really, really cool, and if you can run the thing, you should definitely go download the early access. I'm not going to be delving into software so much in this. I'm really going to be sticking to the hardware side of things. And for the most part, I'm going to be talking about hardware that is used to run or enhance the experience. So we're talking platforms, we're talking virtual reality, these kinds of things that are like really super trendy. But why is this important? Some talk has come up lately about like you can either understand sort of the game side of things or the technology side of things. And I think it's important for people who kind of understand the game side of things to understand the tech side of things and what's going on in the tech world. But on top of that, paradigm changes produce new or faster results in game development. And it's critically important to understand where the technology space is heading in order for you to predict new markets, for you to think up new games that can take advantage of these new technologies. Right now, games are absolutely everywhere. They're not just on PCs and phones, but they're heading to our sunglasses. They are, going to be basically present when we wake up in the morning, persistent when we go to bed at night. We are becoming more and more interconnected every day. If this last year has proven anything, it's that we're decently equipped to handle these persistent platforms way better than we were a decade ago. And while the world is opening up, and if you're here in Massachusetts, mask mandate is lifted. Go outside, go for a jog, at least when it stops raining. But the changes that we have experienced in the last year are absolutely permanent, for better or for worse. And at least on the technology side, that's going to lead to some very, very exciting changes, especially in the game space. So now I'm going to go over some of the new technologies. Um, Obviously, I'm not going to be able to hit everything. So if there's something that you would like me to talk a little bit about during the Q&A portion later on, just write it down and I will get around to it. So first up, obviously, is virtual reality. And I'm talking strictly VR for this slide. So that's like the Facebook Oculus, HTC Vive, and Valve Index in particular. If you're not familiar with virtual reality, it is pretty much just as it's been advertised in movies and such for the last 30 years. It is immersive tech that really puts you into another world. You have HMD goggles, head-mounted display that have, sorry about that, very high definition screens inside them, as well as gyroscopics and motion controls and lots of immersive tech to put you into these alternate worlds. They cost a lot, unfortunately. So the barrier to entry is very high with them. It's the prices are generally coming down and the requirements for running VR is coming down. And of course, there's also mobile VR headsets as well. Everything from like Oculus Quest to like all the way down to Google Cardboard, if you have one of those from back in the day. And those basically just use your phone as a VR headset instead of a dedicated HMD. So cost can be fairly low, but then all the way up to extremely high. We're talking around $1,000 for a Valve Index, which is arguably the most powerful VR kit on the market right now. And they also require, like the high-end ones require pretty high-end PCs to run in the first place. So you're looking at a pretty big investment if you want to get into the VR space. But as a developer, if you want to get into VR, Unity supports it, Unreal supports it, Crytek, Lumberyard, you name the engine, basically all 3D engines at this point, even Godot, support virtual reality. So it's a very interesting space to get involved in, particularly because the design language is so young. Half-Life Alyx's release last year, if you watch some interviews about that, Valve has gone into all the levels of detail that had to go into to make the world feel more immersive, from like reaching out and pulling a drawer to how a door opens, compared to just like hitting the E key when you approach the door and it swings open automatically. Those levels of obfuscation are basically out, and now in a virtual reality space, you have to think more about how you would interact with something realistically, as opposed to trimming out the fat that we've been trying to do in game development for a long, long time. So yeah, it's actually, interestingly, design-wise, you have to take a few steps back and think a little bit more complicated than what we've been heading toward lately. But what's to come in the VR space? Well, obviously, there's going to be new generations of headsets on the way, lower latency, fewer restrictions. Definitely the wires are going to be heading way on their way out. We're going to be talking like, you know, headsets that use newer generations of Bluetooth in order to have faster wireless connections with the PCs they're connected to. The cost, I think, will generally stay pretty high. But, you know, just looking at the way technology usually grows, lower end models will definitely be more reminiscent of current high end models. So kind of think of the way that like a free smartphone now easily beats, you know, a smartphone from 10 years ago. So I think we're going to see the same kind of thing happen in VR. And the design language is definitely going to get more unified. as time goes on. Again, similar to retro versus contemporary game design. And um, right now, just everything kind of isn't written in stone when it comes to VR. We're still really finding our way through it, finding the best way to get games to play. That is going to become more and more standardized as time goes on. I think games like Hot Dogs, Horseshoes, and Hand Grenades, Half-Life Alyx, and Boneworks, and Beat Saber have done a really, really good job of helping players understand how to control games in this world and how developers should have their games be controlled. So since we just talked about virtual reality, obviously point 1.5 here is augmented reality as well as anything else in the XR space. So this is similar to VR, but these display a digital layer on top of the physical world, so they don't actually cut you off from everything that's going on around you. This is usually used in mixed reality headsets and mobile phones, and is generally a lot cheaper to get into than VR itself, especially on the mobile phone side. And with mobile phones, XR games are already incredibly extensive. Just like look at something like Pokemon Go, and you can already see how virtual worlds can be easily applied on top of the real world. It's already proven as an effective and affordable gaming platform. And forms beyond mobile phones are quickly becoming affordable as well. For instance, you have Microsoft HoloLens, which also for the most expensive ones in the Microsoft mixed reality lineup, yeah, they can hit 1,000 as well. But the lower end ones, I think, are more around like the $300 to $400 range. So already they're a lot. It takes a lot less to get into that space than VR. But what's to come in XR? Obviously, the big thing is that integration into generalized eyewear is right around the corner for this technology. So we're talking regular glasses, regular sunglasses, even like visors and hats and such. It's going to become very, very easy to get good looking displays working in much smaller lenses very, very soon. And the uses for XR are definitely going to become more daily and definitely not as specialized. And that's why I personally think that at least physical formats like that, as opposed to the VR HMDs, could potentially take over. Just because it's a little more familiar to a wider audience and just feels like there's less to adopt in that sense. XR experiences are really on the verge of creating a deeper breakdown between digital and physical barriers. I think you're going to see pretty much a death of notifications because of that. And everything's going to become kind of more of a seamless experience. Like you'll essentially put your glasses on and, instead of all these pop-ups coming at you all the time, you'll, basically like look around a corner of your house and see a list of your missed phone calls and such. So that kind of stuff is absolutely on the way. And like I said, I think it has potential to replace VR altogether. It's more convenient, it's less expensive, and it's less cumbersome. Now, this is a technology that, again, is pretty expensive, but is pretty easy to get into, and the price is coming down big time, and that is ray tracing. So ray tracing is a technology that's been around for a while, but has only recently been starting to get included into graphics cards and PCs, consoles. It is a technology that is used to calculate lighting, reflections, shadows, anti-aliasing, image scaling, and sound. Essentially, the idea behind it is these invisible rays get shot off from the player's perspective. And when they bounce back to the camera, they bounce back with information about the surface they've hit. And so you can use this to, say, generate a reflection in a mirror, or to like bounce a sound based on the material, like the physical properties of the material that it has hit. The barrier to entry is also very quickly coming down on this. For instance, the current top of the line, but about to be second top of the line graphics card with ray tracing, the RTX 3080, delivers the power of the top of the line of the last generation, which was the 2080 Ti, at $300 less. So you're seeing the technology becoming easier to integrate for graphics card manufacturers, namely NVIDIA and AMD. And it's already included in the newest generation consoles, which is the Xbox Series X and Series S, as well as the PlayStation 5. At the moment, though, cards are next to impossible to find or buy. There are a lot of problems with scalpers online at the moment. There's chip shortages due to the pandemic, as well as a drought, interestingly enough. And you have bots buying them up without like any humans clicking to buy them. So that's another problem for another talk, and hopefully we see some solutions at some point, because I'm running a 5-year-old graphics card at this point, so I'm probably due for an upgrade. But what is to come in ray tracing? I would say that despite not a lot of software being made for it yet, it is pretty much here to stay. I do see the technology becoming more integrated into the cards themselves rather than a separate chip. See the latest Radeons for evidence of that. AMD actually integrated the tech into the core rendering technology rather than making a subprocessor on the card to handle the math behind that. Essentially, what that means, though, is that it's, for artists, it's more shinies with less overhead. It's just going to be cheaper to do. It's going to likely become non-optional. So it's just going to be on no matter what, and everything will eventually run fine, even with RTX always on. I do see the technology becoming more AI assisted in the future in order to predict functionality. This will come with quirks behind it, as we've already seen in like NVIDIA's upscaling technology, TLSA upscaling technology, or DLSS, I should say, deep learning super sampling in the first generation of ray tracing, but their second generation became much better. And essentially what that can do is that can render a much smaller image, but then using AI prediction, scale it up to a much bigger size. So you can, say, generate a 720p image, and then using predictive technology, upscale that to 4K for kind of unbelievable results. I definitely see future engines being built around the tech rather than as an add-on. And that comes back to my prediction of just ray tracing will always be on at some point in the next decade. So probably around like Unreal 5.5, maybe Unreal 6. I think we'll see the technology just being on and nobody giving it a second thought. And ease of integration plus market availability over time means more games and more adoption. There's not a lot of games right now that use it, but if you just look at like the new Ratchet and Clank that I think either just came out or is coming out next week, it makes just absolutely gorgeous use of the technology. Great reflections everywhere, especially in the rain scenes. So it's definitely picking up speed pretty quickly. And further uses of the tech are yet to be invented, but we're already seeing some cool uses of it. For instance, NVIDIA released a demo the other week where they're able to take a webcam image of somebody, and then normally they'll be like looking off to the side or whatever, but then using ray tracing technology and a little bit of 3D modeling and AI prediction, they're able to keep your face and eyes looking at the camera all the time, as opposed to only just when you're staring directly into the camera. So uses like that are very subtle, but could very much change things, not just for games, but for technology and web conferencing and e-learning and everything else as a whole going forward. Number three, user-generated content, as well as self-promotion. Um, Honestly, UGC is as alive as it's always been, if not more so. We're seeing the resurgence of old, I'm using the old school term construction kit to describe products like Dreams, Roblox, and Core, which are, for all intents and purposes, game engines, but built more as games than as software. And there's actually a Kotaku article a little while ago where somebody from Media Molecule was talking about how they want Dreams to be able to export games to any platform, be it Windows or mobile or even Xbox. And I can only imagine like the licensing issues that would go along with something like this. Like, imagine actually making a full-fledged game on your PlayStation in order to release on iPhone. Uh, I'm not a lawyer. I'm not going into the copyright law on any of that. Not dealing with it. Not touching that until it actually happens. But otherwise, Steam Workshop, Mod.io, Epic Game Store, and now the Overwolf are offering mod and user-generated content platforms for all developers. So we're definitely seeing that space open up a lot, despite the fact that it's been around also for 30 plus years now. And it's good to see that more developers are making tools to integrate into their game and develop creative communities around what they've made. In my opinion, user-generated content is an excellent way to keep games alive well beyond their expiration date. And even if you stop creating content for your game, if you have a strong community behind it, they won't. So yeah, it helps sell itself, really. But what's to come in the UGC space? A lot. Game Builder Garage from Nintendo was just announced. This is a brand new construction kit kind of game that's coming out for the Switch. That's due out, I believe, in early June. Construction kit ecosystems in general are going to pretty much become the next itch.io, as far as I can tell. What they do is they just naturally create ecosystems that are much easy to develop for, and can theoretically be a lot more profitable for the companies behind them than something like itch could kind of ever dream of being, unfortunately. The appeal of construction kits in general is not just for kids to get into game making, but also, say, for professional developers who come home from a long day at work, and they still want to make a game, but they don't want to put in nearly like the level of like crunch and tedium and headache to go beyond that. They just want to make something fun and get it out there and build up their portfolio and learn new tools and generate some new ideas to go behind them. So, they open up Game Builder Garage or Roblox or Dreams or Core or Gary's Mod, and just make something super fun and get it up in the ecosystem and can even make money off of it. Standalone exporters from these could pretty much replace game engines themselves, I think. Don't hold me to that or anything, but I think for independent developers and like low or no budget independent developers, especially when you look at engines like Unreal and Unity that have, you know, real licensing agreements behind them, and you know, you owe like X amount after a certain number of sales or whatnot, or you have to pay per month or everything. It could generally be easier, at least for your first projects, to say, hey, you know what, we're gonna go make something in Dreams over like a couple week period, and we're just gonna get that out and see how it does, and we'll build up our portfolio that way. So I think going forward, you're going to see a mix from indies, especially using these construction kit platforms to build up their communities, to build up their portfolios, to get new products out into the ecosystem without worrying so much about the subscription costs and submission costs and everything else that can go along with them. Indies and AAAs are really both beginning to claim space in the Neil Stephenson metaverse. And you know, that term is being tossed around a lot, meaning like a cross section of creativity in the digital space and the physical space, and everybody bringing all their ideas together where actors can't be distinguished from being fake or real from one another. And everybody's really talking about this whole like metaverse obsession right now. So whether it is something as complex as a game made in Roblox, or something as simple as a level made in Laundry and Plastic Reality, everybody's contributions are really starting to hit these platforms in a big way. And the internet and just our daily lives are really starting to be filled with user-generated content. Players are finding new ways to express themselves. Developers are finding new ways to help players express themselves. And honestly, like the level of complexity that this is going into right now is sort of creating an entirely new market for user-generated content, and it's still practically untouched, and there's lots of space to claim. So if you have any interest in, you know, both improving your own workflow when it comes to making your games, as well as opening your games up to loads of interpretation and custom levels and modding, go ahead and, you know, create a tool set to go along with whatever you're making, because honestly, that's the place to be right now. However, it comes with an interesting new caveat, and that is the blockchain and crypto. So I don't want to go too much into this. I'm not trying to make this a blockchain crypto hype talk. There's plenty of those out there. You'll have no trouble finding them. You know, I don't want to end this with welcome to my TED talk. So we're not going there. But basically, the blockchain, summed up, is a digital ledger of transactions. It uses secure hashing to make transactions on it essentially tougher to fake. And so that makes every single transaction on it unique and individual. It also takes currently a lot of power to generate these hashes. So there's a lot of talk of environmental concerns around like NFTs and such. And use in games is currently limited. So for instance, you might have like a city builder game, and the plots of land are sold as NFTs for you to then build your house or town on. Digital trading cards, NFT sites like OpenSea actually have trading card functionality built into them, so you can make like a whole trading card game up there if you wanted to. Microtransactions, obviously, you can use the blockchain space to keep track of microtransaction purchases in your game, digital currencies. And then, of course, this is a big no-no, but there are some games that will actually generate crypto for the developer, and these games have been banned from Steam. So do not do it. That's a bad. But what's to come in the blockchain space for gaming? A lot, actually. So yeah, the crypto developers and NFT developers have really heard the concerns about the environmental impact of the technology, and so they're still working at ways to make them use less energy consumption. Um, and I don't think it's too far off where, again, much like XR just being integrated into our daily lives, crypto itself becomes fully integrated into our daily lives. And much like just turning on our computer to check our email, we're not even going to think too much about NFT generation. I personally also see NFTs as an important part of user generated content coming up. So yeah, for anybody who's not familiar with what an NFT is, it stands for non-fungible token. It's essentially, think of it like a digital signature that can't be duplicated, but it is attached to an otherwise normal file like a JPEG or an MP3 or a video. In-game integrations that benefit the player and not just the developer. So being able to sell your user-generated content in a secure way that can't be duplicated, and that essentially, like, you could even sell for multiple levels of. So you can come out with a regular version that costs $5, or you can come out with a foil version that costs $500. Choice is really up to you. And unfortunately, gambling is inevitable. I think we're gonna see, pretty soon we'll probably see loot boxes that include Bitcoin, but we'll also see like games that encourage you to bet your Ethereum in order to, win the lottery or whatever. That's right around the corner. It's inevitable. I personally think it's disgusting, but yeah, what are you gonna do? That's just the way of the world, and that's just humanity. And so now we're going to get back to talking about the metaverse. And really, the way this whole metaverse conversation is going is it is a culmination of all of the above. We're talking virtual worlds and all the things we contribute to them. At the moment, it's all still kind of segregated, other than like logging onto the internet to access it. But like VR chat is its own thing. OpenSea is its own thing. Mario Maker is its own thing, etc. And what a user brings is limited to the current what the current platform offers. You can't really break the platform's barriers at the moment. Like you're limited to what the software can do. But what's to come is essentially the matrix. So much like a web browser itself, the metaverse is literally just going to be one giant hub with whatever you want to do or build available right at your fingertips. And it's going to take the form of like integration of multiple platforms into a shared experience with cross-connected benefits. We're already seeing bits and pieces of this on platforms like Core, where the community will essentially create like one shared digital currency. And shared items that are used across their games in order to sort of cross-pollinate between each other. And so I think that same kind of cross-pollination mentality is going to spread across that entire virtual ecosystem. I think, we're looking at massive realistic or extra realistic online farmers markets, essentially. But then combine that with a nightclub, art show, museum, school, theme park, and library, all rolled into one. Basically, anything you want to access, anywhere you want to go, it's all going to be built in. And it's not going to be just up to one developer to build it all in, because it is the metaverse. The idea there is we build the ecosystem, we give you the tools, and then you build the things you want to build inside of it. Right now, that's handled via menu. So like you look at Roblox, and then you go on there and you pick the games you want to play. This space is essentially the same thing, except you just walk your avatar over to the game you want to play. So I don't think a platform that handles that kind of thing is too far off. Maybe not in the 2020s, maybe in the early 2030s. And will it replace, platforms like Steam in terms of distribution of these individual games? No, I don't think so. At least not yet. And not when it comes out. But I think there's potential for everybody to kind of, in much the same way that all web games work on a web browser, I think we'll see all metaverse games working in um, kind of the same kind of agnostic platforms. I don't think there'll be one platform for all metaverse games, but I think they'll all be compatible across individual ones, kind of the same way that websites are compatible across different web browsers. So thinking ahead, part 3. Excuse me. Jumping on the bandwagon. So honestly, it is very easy to get wrapped up in all the hype of this. There's a lot of interesting technology on the way, but my advice to all game designers is the same as it's always been: the game comes first. It's very important to look to the future, but it's doubly important to not reinvent the wheel. If it ain't broke, don't fix it. Use technology that gels with game design, not vice versa. So what I mean by that is essentially, you have an idea for a game, and your game is going to feel more authentic if you just think of it as a game rather than this is software designed for such and such platform. Because honestly, there's no guarantees that, especially with new technology, that you'll even be allowed access to that technology when it comes out. You want to get up and rolling on a project, so you apply for beta testing on some new piece of hardware, and then they don't send it to you. What are you gonna do? Then you have to replan everything. Think about the game first, and then bring your game to that tech, rather than, you get the tech and you look at it and you go, okay, what can I do with it? And do not forget to budget. Time, money, or energy, all technology is an investment, no matter how you look at it. Be prepared to spend considerable time implementing new tech. New tech is always more untested than time-tested tech. So, be prepared for there to be bugs. Be prepared for those bugs to not be fixed for years. And be prepared to budget in a way that has you working around them. Engines will catch up, but are currently behind the curve in terms of, a lot of the technology that's out there. A lot of this is still going to come down in the end to the developers, and by that I mean the game developers, thinking of things that the engine developers never even could. For instance, very simple example, Rare with Sea of Thieves created a fantastic ocean model that does, very realistic boat swaying and waves and light reflections and everything. And Epic wanted to purchase their technology for integration into the engine. Rare said no. They wanted to hold on to it because that is technology they created. And I haven't even seen anything in Unreal 5 about that, but I guarantee, Epic has obviously seen Sea of Thieves. They want that tech, so they're going to make it for themselves. but that means the engine is behind the curve, and that game came out in what, 2018. So yeah, sometimes you can't wait for the tech people to do it. Sometimes you still have to do it yourself. And in the end, the payoff may or may not be worth it, depending on the target audience. So you need to do your homework, do your due diligence, figure out who you're making a game for, because you're never just making it for yourself. And if you are, then you know you can't really think of doing this as a job. You really need to, whenever you're starting a project, be like, who am I making this for? What can they pay for it? Not just what do I want them to pay for it? And why will they like it? And then in some cases, though, it is also important to be a lab rat. Rule of acquisition number 9: opportunity plus instinct equals profit. There's absolutely nothing wrong in using your game as a test case for new tech, but obviously do not do it for free. If you're good at something, never do it for free. Platform holders may sometimes string you along to get what they want. Remember, it is your game. Never be afraid to back out of a deal when no cash, especially when no cash has been exchanged. And then even after, check your contracts. If you're uncomfortable, a termination clause can always save you a lawsuit. And if you feel like somebody who holds the technology is stringing you along to get what they want before you get paid, and you're like putting in 6 months to a year of effort, and they keep promising you and blah blah blah, you need to put your foot down, halt development, and say, no, you're either going to fund this project at this point or you're not. Yeah, because if most technology holders, if they're serious about getting software onto their platforms, won't mess with you like that, because they know that the consequences are going to go a lot further than just missing out on one little indie game. And another rule of acquisition: expand or die. Games are living products, so let them grow. Even if you're not thinking of putting your game into live service, you never know when they'll pick up or find new life. Look at Among Us. Came out 2 years ago, barely sold any copies, and then all of a sudden, pandemic hits, and it sells 2 million. So it's good to be prepared for, honestly, anything, because you never know when opportunity is going to strike. And honestly, games are no longer about day one. They're really more about decade one. If you're ready to commit the time to your product, don't think of it as just like one story. Think of it as storytelling. Think of it as, what would I do with this game if it was more like a TV show? I can absolutely see the episodic format starting to make a little bit of a comeback in a way. We tried it 15 years ago. Telltale did okay with it, but they still went out of business. But with the way games are handled now, you don't need to, put all your eggs in one basket on day one. If you want to save some story for later, you can absolutely do that and grow the experience over time in a way to create consistent community growth as time goes on, rather than just trying to get 200,000 users day one. And that is also good. Because if you can show somebody that kind of consistent upkeep and growth and such, everybody's going to be pretty impressed by that. So from Among Us to Fortnite, games big and small are finding new audience after initial failure now. So yeah, the day one rule is out the window. integrate new technologies as a way to breathe new life into games. So any of these technologies that I talked about today, from VR to ray tracing to user generated content, Fortnite is, coming out with a new tool set for user generated content now, and a new like little meta marketplace for it. So yeah, there's just so many ways that, if you're growing your game over time and expanding your operation over time, there's no reason not to look ahead a little bit and think, okay, how can my game gel with some of these new things that haven't fully hit the market yet, but aren't too far away from hitting the market? And especially if you already have a game that's out there that you're still looking to do stuff with it, you can find something on the horizon that you can sort of take advantage of. And honestly, this is just good advice for game design in general. Build modular so updates can be done for cheap. The less that you have hard coded in, the better. And it just leaves you leeway for integrating new SDKs, APIs, merging with new hardware, that kind of thing. Try to leave all your code as open to, plugins essentially as possible. So finally, some stray thoughts, and right in time too. Brain computer interfaces. Number 6. This is technology that directly interferes with the player's brain, or interfaces with the player's brain. I should say that interferes. Yeah, probably. Different levels of invasiveness, trade-off between effectiveness and health concerns. So there's some methods of it that are essentially placed directly under the scalp. But then the signal to the brain is essentially muffled by the skull. But then technology that is placed into the skull can more directly interface with the brain, but there's more concerns about end user health and consequences over time for doing that. Not to mention the ethics of mind control and security. Gabe Newell from Valve has a really good quote about that. Remember when Bob got hacked? Yeah, that was scary. Is he still running through the woods naked? So there's a lot of concerns about that, and no technology is unhackable. There have been technology manufacturers who have made such claims and seen their platforms running Doom within a matter of days. So be ready, essentially. There are some things in development, like Elon Musk's Neuralink and Valve's OpenBCI, but these are all still in very, very early stages. And at the moment, there's nothing to worry about, because I don't think that any of these technologies will hit the market within the next decade. There's too many unanswered questions about it, and I don't necessarily see it being a market shaker, particularly for games, anytime too soon. It's on the horizon, but really more as a medical device to start, rather than as entertainment. And then obviously, what about the NFTs? NFTs are definitely becoming a big, big thing going forward. Like I said earlier, it's a digital signature that's tied to the blockchain via ledger to a creative file, like an image, movie, or a song. The interesting thing about them is they do create rarity by making any digital item sort of a one of a kind, depending on how it's integrated. Like obviously a JPEG can't be one of a kind, but a plot of land in a game, or and any other kind of item in a game, the game can detect, oh yeah, this is that hat, and it is one of a kind, and there are no other hats like it. Um, and so NFTs can absolutely be used for user-generated content. I'm kind of guilty of that myself at the moment, in a very strange way, because my game can make art and then you can sell that art as an NFT. We don't, put any level of control over you over that, and I'm doing that, and I'm encouraging our community to do that too. At the moment, most NFT-enabled games use the tokens as in-game currency rather than as a way to support creative communities. And then there are also gaming-focused NFT websites coming around that are being used essentially as an alternative to like store.tf or the Counter-Strike store on Steam, for instance, where you're just trading items around, but trading them as one-of-a-kind NFTs. It's only a matter of time before NFTs and user-generated contents are integrated together directly into the editors and tool sets and mod tools that come with games. I think that's, maybe 2 years away as a mainstream thing at most. So that's like probably, the closest and easiest to integrate thing in this talk. So just to sum up really quickly, because I know I'm running out of time and need some time open for Q&A. Technology is moving very, very rapidly right now. There's lots of exciting developments on the horizon, from virtual and augmented reality and anything XR, user-generated content, ray tracing, and any kind of machine learning AI for that matter, blockchain and metaverse kind of stuff, really. My advice is to stop focusing so much on day one and really plan for the long haul with your projects. There's really no reason why a game has to be dead the moment it comes out. Whether it's, dead because it sold everything it's ever going to do and you already coded it perfectly and there's no need for an update, or dead because you weren't able to find a community and so you haven't sold any copies and so you're just going to kill it off. I don't see any need for either of those paths anymore. I think, the bulk of your budget is obviously going to go into development for day one, but having a plan for how you're going to keep it alive and what you're going to update it with and the new kinds of content and tools that you're going to come out with to support it going forward are equally important. Make deals to make your game a showcase. Especially with new tech, if you manage to land a deal to, make it on an untested platform, go ahead and do whatever you can to make a splash, but don't be locked in to using new tech because you may or may not get it when it comes around. So, don't be heartbroken when you don't. Still be ready to make your game, or find somebody who will take you, essentially. And don't ever forget that opportunity plus instinct equals profit. That's the end. It is QA time. And here's just some general info about my games and merch and NFTs and where to follow us anywhere on social medias at Lantana Games, or come join our Discord. Buy Monitoring Plastic Reality on Steam for $15, or go get a coffee mug on our Redbubble shop. We got all different ways that you can support the studio, and just come say hi. But if anybody has any questions, I am happy to take them. Okay. Well, I guess there's no questions. So thanks for showing up, everybody. Have a great rest of BostonFIG. If there's anything left today, I'm not sure there is, but I'm also giving a talk tomorrow called "So You Want to Be Indie." I don't know how much of a talk it's going to be, as opposed to sort of a little more of like an open Q&A on being indie, but I have put together sort of a starting template package for aspiring indie developers that has a whole bunch of documents just that are going to be freely available on Google Drive, and so we're going to go over those, and then I'll do Q&A for that. You will not want to miss it. That's going to be a lot of fun. Awesome. All right. Thanks all.